London, 1973. The air was electric. David Bowie, clad in his striking flame-red mullet, strutted through the city streets like a man possessed. He had just returned from conquering the world as Ziggy Stardust, the alien rock star who'd mesmerized the world. But Bowie wasn't looking to stay in the stars. No, he had his eyes set on something closer to home. The music that made him. "Do you think they'll get it?" Bowie asked, sitting cross-legged on the floor of a dimly lit studio. His ever-present cigarette dangled from his lips, and his fingers danced idly on the floor. Across from him sat Ken Scott, his trusted producer, who, with a knowing smile, replied, "They're going to love it, David. You're paying homage to the songs that shaped you." Homage was the word. Bowie's seventh studio album, Pinups, wasn't the glam spectacle fans might have expected. Instead, it was a love letter to the 1960s British rock scene, an era Bowie had come of age in. He'd grown up on these songs, hanging around London's smoky clubs, wide-eyed and soaking in the sounds of bands like The Who, The Yardbirds, Pink Floyd, and The Kinks. Now, fresh off his intergalactic success, Bowie was ready to return to Earth. And what better way than to cover the songs of his youth? But this wasn't just some nostalgic trip. It was 1973, after all, a time of upheaval, both musically and socially. The glittering promise of the 60s had given way to a grittier, more cynical 70s, and Bowie, always the chameleon, was reflecting that change. He wasn't interested in simply rehashing the past. No, in true Bowie fashion, Pinups was a transformation, a reimagining of classic hits, twisted and distorted through the lens of his signature glam rock style. "Let's give them something familiar, but make it Bowie," he said, as he scrawled notes onto a napkin, brainstorming song arrangements that would elevate these classic tracks. And that's exactly what he did. Bowie wasn't interested in carbon copy covers. He wanted to turn the music that had shaped him into something new, something reflective of his current sound. This was a bold move. Here was a rock star at the height of his powers, turning his gaze backward instead of forward. But only Bowie could make the old sound this fresh. By the time the album was ready to hit the shelves, Bowie's fans were in for a surprise. It wasn't Ziggy, it wasn't Space Oddity. It was Bowie unmasked, celebrating the music that made him who he was. And though some critics scratched their heads, wondering why Bowie had chosen this moment to step away from his otherworldly persona, there was something deeply human about Pinups, something grounding. David had, after all, never been one to follow the rules.